Today I'm delighted to present Professor Marton Pekshi. He is the director of the Geographical Institute of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, member of the Academy, and also a member of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. And I think maybe one of the most interesting is that he's been elected a member of the Academia Leopoldina in Halle in East Germany. He is a geographer, physical geographer, mainly geomorphologist and landscape researcher. And he has been associated with the International Geographical Union for many years. I'm delighted to meet you today, and I would like to ask you some questions about your background. What led you to become a geographer?
Thank you. Your nice question and introduction. You see, I studied in Esztergom. This is Hungarian Rome, in the Benedictine Gymnasium. This was a classical humanistical gymnasium, and I studied different kind. We studied different kind of subjects. Oh, this is the main subject which I interested in. This was the mathematics and physics. Mm-hmm. But when I was about 18 years old, and our professor, and same time it was the director of the gymnasium, he was a historiker and humanistic classic languages, guide us into a museum of Catholic Church, mm-hmm. see, and the history of this region. Mm-hmm. And people showed for us some amphoras, mm-hmm. which was written, this is 10,000 years before Christ. And I didn't know what is this, because we studied in this gymnasium, the whole earth has 6,000 years old. How happened? And we didn't ask from the professor what is possible. I looked for many different books to study these things, the life and the earth history. And I want to understand the development of the humanity and also the development of the landscape. And I interested in this section, and I asked from other people, how can I go more and more in deep in this question. I read a lot of lexicon and such special things, and therefore I chose the geography and geology, mm-hmm. to study the Earth's history and the history of the landscape and the humanity, culture of humanity. Mm-hmm. This is the very simple background. Because my parents and family want to send me to study medicine, uh-huh. at first, and then I was very good sportist. It was a very interesting thing that I chose the geography and geosciences.
But you're interested in the evolution of civilization.
Yes.
Then why did you specialize in geomorphology?
Oh, you see, because I study a lot of geology, and you see, I studied during the Second World War.
Yes.
And finished the Second World War, and I was student, and we have not enough possibility to go to follow my basic background. Mm. I want to go in the oil firm. Mm. But my professor said, I have a position in the geomorphological department. Mm-hmm. If you want to come, please. And there was a very good possibility in 1947. Mm-hmm. And this is the background. But I was a few years in this chair. After that, in the beginning of the 50s, the Hungarian Academy of Science founded a lot of research institutes. Research Institute for Biology, physics and for geography too. And people asked me to go in this institute because I was at first researchman and then after teacher.
I see.
See? And this was very simple, my background, and in this institute I lead the physical geographical group. It was at first a small working group, and later this institute, this working group became an institute in the middle on 60s. And at that time I was associate professor also in university simultaneously, but our professor is unfortunately very early died, and I have to choice to success professor in university or to take the directorship in the Institute of Geography, Hungarian Academy of Science. This happened in 62, and in 63 I elected as a director of the Research Institute of the Geography of Hungarian Academy of Science. Since I am a director there, naturally my basic training and field research has belonged to the landscape research, regional geographical, physical geography, and geomorphology. And naturally I am studied enough in the field of the quaternary research. And some hobby, but specialized knowledge of mine. This is the LUS research.
Yes.
Now I am the president of the International LUS Commission, and I was even in France to organize such a LUS Commission session. Yes, this is about short my background, but because I am director of the director of the Geographical Institute, I have to deal with the economic geography too.
Yes.
I have task to help for the human geographers, you see?
That's a
And our task in the Academy of Science, in the Hungarian geography, to develop the whole geography for further research, for fundamental research, and also for teaching the geography in the high school. You see?
Yes. Well,
And we have another task, the basic task, to study the Hungarian geographical environment. I say geographical environment because, my opinion, today some direction of geography or some people in the environmental direction believe that the environment is physical science or physical geography or natural historical science. This is a better say. But I think this is good for the biologist. Environment for animals, environment for trees and so on. But an environment for humanity, an environment for man, it is not only this physical universe, but we, the society, the present society is also a environment, and which we done, which we made, all kind of man-made infrastructure and physical and political things to the environment. Because if I want to make a decision, some natural research I want to use or mine, it is, you see, 400 years ago in England it was not very important coal.
Yes.
But nowadays it's more useful the oil. But we don't know in the next future. That is always depending of the productivity technological level of the humanity. Therefore, if I have to make a decision or some site planning, in that cases, this is not enough to bore here and ground mechanical point of view say, please, this is enough stable, but if there are some slope and coming another factors, snow melt and so on, then if people don't enumerate with the social condition, then maybe we make a wrong decision. Therefore, my opinion, the so-called geographical environment, this is a very multi-side knowledge, which beginning from the nature and finished in the policy.
In the police?
Police?
Is police?
No.
In the?
Policy. Or administrative...
Policy.
Policy.
Policy, aha.
Excuse me, policy.
Does environment include human perceptions?
Yes, and the season administrative, the regional administration, and the state strategy,
Yes.
all kind of things.
Yes, yes.
And this is very complicated things, and nowadays to preserve the nature, maybe it's a very important question for humanity.
Exactly.
And for economy. Therefore, it's not enough this very narrow specialization. This is very important. Without near specialist, we couldn't to make a very good technology and so on. But have to understand the specialist among others.
Yes.
Very well.
Yes.
And it means have to have some knowledge and practice and think to see what they could to make the geologist, technologist, and who make the sociology and politics and so on,
Yes.
economy.
Do you think that
This is my opinion about the complex or geographical environmental direction.
in your institute, do you succeed in coming to an integrated program of research on environmental issues, or is it a
Yes, we
combination of
made,
special
and we have now, you see, a little change of the generation. Because I was beginning after the Second World War,
Yes.
this generation. But now have to change this generation, and we have about half of the institute is young people. We are about 100 people, about 50 scientists, and we have to give our old experience, and now I say the human geographer, social geographer, they have to study also the soils and also the water processes and some geomorphology too, and we make, for instance, such a program about the countries. We make about 50 different thematic maps from the geology up to the transport or administration. All kinds, soils, minerals, and so on. Have to put even this mapping for some, how can I say, small province, yes, units, the, administrative units. There are in Hungary 20. Therefore, we make an atlas for every counties.
Covering
See?
all of these features.
All
yes.
these features.
Yes.
They have to understand these problems.
I think in many other schools today there are several attempts to somehow combine the human and the physical dimensions of environment, and you seem to be quite committed to putting that into practice rather than just theorizing about it. Is there something about the institutional structure of the academy which permits you to express this integrated approach?
Yes, the Hungarian Academy of Science give us some possibility to choice about the so-called state level research program. There are for the national historical sciences and also for the social sciences, about 11 main program or project. Among that we have 4 or 5 which we can follow and subsidize this research work by the Hungarian Academy of Science, as well some ministries too. For instance, we take part at first in the national research program, we, for instance, look for the constructional material, and we evaluate the landscape in whole. And we have to make a regionalization of the countryside on the basis of the agro-ecological value.
Yes.
See? And this is a very combined task. I mentioned, for instance, in Hungary, it was a very old land evaluation rule. And now it is 200 years old, and this was not good for the state, and we forced and we initiated to change and to make a new one. And we suggested not only, but also we take part in this research work. And to this research direction have to use the most modern technique. For instance, the remote sensing.
Yes.
Yes. And then the second main task to take part in the protection of the environment. And then we have to take part in the project of the rural development and the urbanization, because in Hungary the urbanization and industrialization in the last 2 decades is very rapidly developed, and the very important problem how changing face of the rural area, and many people, as in all over the Europe and in other continents too, running to the cities.
Yes.
But it is a very big problem, because for instance, one people coming in capital of Budapest is cost for the state minimum $1 million, because the infrastructure.
Yes.
and people want to make a new policy that the people have to, the population have to remain in the rural area, but develop the rural area better, give more infrastructure. This is also which we have to also help manage. And the problem, you see, is that in every project, the data collection. And therefore, I have now a new, I proposed a new project to make a so-called geographical information system. Oh, this is at the beginning.
Yes.
And this map series is a part of them. And naturally, this is a very, very difficult problem because all ministries, all surveys want to have open data. And I think we have to manage, and this is a little problem with which we said monitoring.
Yes, yes. But now your function isn't just entirely research then. It is also, there's an applied and a pure aspect to the research that you do. But you did mention that you have to prepare texts or maybe train teachers for secondary schools. Do you do that, or is it the university?
No, it was 2-3 decades ago when I prepared the textbook for secondary school. But now I teach in the technical university, and this is a course for engineers, postgraduate course, to protect the environment. This is a 3 years course, and I speak about the landscape analysis and the landscape evaluation for the engineers. Yes, this is a new task for engineers and geoscientists, but this was not a subject in the university earlier. But now have to have such a people who have a possibility to decision making.
Yes.
Therefore, these people is maybe in most cases head of some department and so on.
I see.
And such a textbooks I have to write, and I give some lectures also in the University of Utrecht-Sloran. At first, my also narrow subject to make geomorphological mapping and thematical mapping in the geography. Yes.
But the prospect, the jobs though in which trained geographers, the jobs available for trained geographers in Hungary then, at the research level you have described somewhat. What about the university itself? Departments of geography, are they also integrated, or is geography part of other kinds
Yes, this
of
is a very interesting thing you see in the East European socialist countries. See, after the Second World War, the geography very selected, very specialized for physical geography and for social geography. And on the basic of the ideology, it was very wide gap, yes, and now since 10 years or so we try to make a combined way, but it is difficult, you see, because the background for the human geographers and for physical geographers was quite different. Yes, basically and theoretically we can make united the integration.
How? Is it on theoretical lines, on methodological lines, or on problem definition? What is the basis that allows?
You see, this is personally, I think, as in the Union of Geography too, because the IGU has also a very bad direction. You see, I am not agree with this direction because now people thought it's very important the social branches of the geography, and people want dominate it. Then a few years ago, the landscape ecologist established a new union, you know.
Yes,
Yes.
I met Sonnenfeld. and
Yes, you
yes,
know.
yes.
And now the geomorphologists want to establish the new union. You see, in the next, it was the last in Manchester, the first geomorphological conference, and the second in the 1809, organized by West German geographers, geomorphologists, the second geomorphological conference. It means people want to establish the new union.
Yes.
This is very dangerous for geography.
It is. In your opinion, what is the minimum essential condition for cooperation between geographers on the human side and geographers on the physical side? Is it that they would have a common methodology, like atlas making, a common theory, like systems analysis, or a common ideology?
Yes, we can find all three basic tasks in the environmental research, in the environmental protection itself. The environment I mentioned first is a very combined task for geologists, for geographer, and for other scientists. And the geographer has some advantage to manage this and to understand each other and to give a new regional concept.
Well,
I think this is important, and the IGU
yes.
have to help in these things.
Exactly, exactly. I think it will take people with a background like you and with an interest in civilization, like your early interest was, to really bring back this holistic notion of environment, because there have been at least 2 generations of specialists. I'm so happy you came to speak with us today, and I wish you all the very best with your institute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.